assign assessments in Edulastic. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to navigate to the test option in the library. We're going to click on New Test in the right corner. There's a couple options here. We can create one from a PDF, or we can create one from scratch. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. So the first screen that we come to is sort of like a description. You give your test some kind of name. You give it some kind of description, what grade level you're at, you're teaching this year, your subject. And it's also important to kind of put a tag down here too. This can be your standard. This can be some kind of like unit name, something like that. But the reason that you wanted to put a specific standard or a unit name is because it'll make it easier to find later on when you need to use it again, or if you're sharing it with different people, or if different people need to access it. Tags are a great way to help organize these different assessments we'll create, and helps people find it a little bit easier. So I'm just going to put it underneath this one for the purposes of this video. Next, I'm going to go to Add Items. This is where we can add the different items to our test that we're creating. Right now, I'm searching in the entire library, specifically for grade 9, ELA, and I'm just searching all standard sets. You can play around with these filters on the left side until you get kind of tuned in into what you're looking for specifically. If you're still having trouble finding the right question that just kind of meshes with what you're trying to assess, you can always create a new test item. And we have a variety of different options when we do that. For right now, I'm just going to select multiple choice. But when you're creating your new test option, there are a couple things that you need to know. First is obviously you need to put in stuff like the question itself. You need to put in the different options, the scoring methods. All of this information is needed kind of on the back end of Edulastic just to make sure that the question functions properly. But you do want to pay special attention to the metadata here. This is something that they talked about in the trainings, but this metadata is what helps this question show up when people are doing different searches. So you definitely want to make sure you put in a grade level. I would definitely say standard set as well as a subject. You can go into more detailed knowledge here, like the Bloom's level and the difficulty level, so on and so forth. But I do recommend putting a tag level with your custom question that you're asking. And again, it's to help find it easier, in the future. So I'm going to cancel out of this, and I'm just going to select, I need to add a test name. I'm just going to select this question, sure. And so now that I've actually added a question, notice how there's an assign button right here at the top, and I can go ahead and assign it to my students now. But what I want to do is I want to first review said question, make sure that everything is kind of appropriate for it. One thing I notice is that this isn't particularly my standard that I'm assessing here. So this question does not really fit my standard. I can go back and find one that does, or I can say, well, I know enough about how this particular question could correlate with my standard, so I'll just figure out a way to make this question fit my standard, either by editing it or something along the lines of that. The other thing I wanted to point out is the actual settings page for the test itself. And so how this settings page kind of works is you have different options here on the left side. And the one I want to kind of highlight specifically is all the way at the bottom. See, there's anti-cheating stuff. There's a maximum attempts allowed. You can have calculators show up, hints to students, different accessibility features, password. There are so many settings in here, but the one that I think that you should really pay attention to is down here where it says choose test interface. The reason why this one is so powerful is because we can actually make this test look like the milestones test. So if we click this option and we scroll down to right here where it says Georgia milestones. So now as you're doing these tests, the kids are going to look at them and they're going to see, wait a minute, this kind of looks like the milestones, and it'll just kind of help them out in the future once they get to that point. But now that I've adjusted my settings, everything looks fine here. I've reviewed my questions. Everything seems fine here. I can go back and add extra items now. And as I'm adding these items, my settings do not change. See, it's still in that milestones format. So I can go back and change out these questions, add more, remove them, create new ones. And once I have my test exactly the way that I want it, now I can go ahead and hit assign. Obviously, this doesn't really work for me because I don't have a class yet, but you should already have a class in there. It should either be linked through Clever or perhaps it's linked through your Google Classroom. And you'll just select which class you want to assign it to. You can choose all students in that specific class, or all students in the class, or maybe specific ones. You can choose open and close dates and get very, very, very very, very precise in how you want this assignment to actually be sent out. You can even review some of the behaviors and some of the anti-cheating stuff that you've already done, and maybe some of the other settings that you've seen on the other page. But once all that is looking good and it's kind of ready, we'll just click assign, and it'll send it out to your students. If it's through Google Classroom, it should appear as a Google Classroom assignment. If it's through Clever, students will log into their Edulastic account and access the test through there. If you have any questions, please reach out to your local ITS, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.